Hello.
Hello. I got distracted trying to set my background and everything. So
I was going to say, with a guy like you, I'm not sure if that's your living room or if it's a false
no,
background.
no.
Rich, this is Walter. Walter, this is Rich.
Hey, Rich.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Walter took the time to listen to our interview, so he has a background about what you do. And
Oh, good.
Yeah, and because you've been on the podcast before, Rich, we'll just keep this more like a hangout, right? There's not going to be a formal, I'll certainly be driving the direction and asking you to present graphics. And if that takes you a minute or two to find the right folder or the right graphic, don't panic at all, because as you know, I can chop that out in the edit. Or Walter and I can start yakking, and sometimes lovely stuff comes up when one person's away looking for something. Now, can you see us, Rich, or not?
No, I still have to go back to the PowerPoint window.
But you don't need to see us. Walter and I are two very good-looking guys. We've established that. Let's just get on with the presentation, and if you could explain to us what it is we're looking at there, Rich.
Okay, so this is the Four Corners area, New Mexico, here, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona, and Flagstaff, Arizona, Albuquerque, and Durango. And all the yellow dots are what I've got for Chaco and Great Houses.
These are all circular architectural structures.
Mm-hmm.
How many are we looking at there? There must be 200, is there?
I think I've got about 250 on here. And then I just brought up where the Chaco Canyon National Historical Park is, Mesa Verde and Canyon de Chelly.
For the sake of context, for Walter and for everybody listening, a great house that Rich just talked about is a large circular ashlar cut stone built dwelling, temple, crossover. Do you think that's about right, Rich? A dwelling, temple, crossover?
Yeah, I think temple probably is a pretty good way to look at them. I mean, there's indications that people were living in portions of them, but not the entire structure. So, yeah, there's still a lot of people that look at them as just large apartment complexes, which they're pretty overbuilt for that, but that's still what people do, and people who think they're a little of both, and then people who think they're just some sort of ritual, sacred type structure.
Call them what you want, but they are where the gods lived for those people.
Yeah, I think that that puts it extremely well.
Okay, so let's get into these buildings or this landscape, Rich.
So the red lines here, they show the roads that I've identified so far. Some have been ground truth, some are primarily from LiDAR, but due to their form, it's pretty obvious that they're roads, their form, and what they articulate with. So that I've got probably now around 270 miles of roads mapped, and the purple are roads that in the 1980s, when the BLM did a study on the roads, those are roads that were identified by that survey that I haven't been able to find in the LiDAR yet. But there are roads that don't show up in the LiDAR because they're just kind of traces across the landscape. So that's what we could be looking at, is roads that are primarily traces across the landscape that can be found through either clearing of the surface without any real modification as far as depth, or clearing of the brush, and maybe a shear or lithic scatter along that road that can identify that as some sort of cultural linear feature.
Are these roads that you've identified and mapped, you said about 280 miles, are they raised roads?
There are a few raised, but almost all are excavated. Well, we've got some instances of roads that are about 1 meter wide, and other instances where they are 20 to 25 meters wide. So they vary in width quite a bit. It seems like the narrow roads don't necessarily carry the importance of the larger roads, and they may be more of a trail or some specific ritual-related item that wasn't meant to be big. But in general, they're 10 plus meters wide, except for those unusual ones that are smaller than that.
Can I just challenge you quickly on that, Rick? You up for a challenge this early in our chat?
Of course.
Okay, so would it be right to identify the bigger road as more sacred than the smaller path of a meter wide?
Possibly not. Yeah. I mean, the smaller path may have a more limited function and could indicate greater importance. It's in Newcomb where we had real good context for the smaller paths, and they actually intersected with the larger path. They were not parallel, but close, and intersected with the larger road. So, yeah, I'm not sure what some of those small things are doing. And because they're small, there haven't been a lot identified. I think it's hard to, once you get to that scale, it's hard to say if that's a Chaco road or just something else that happened later in time.
Walter knows where I'm going with this because he's been here on 3 occasions and mapped the Camino Real, which is the royal road that goes over the top of the mountain that was the reserve of the Ziba, the ruler. But there's a huge salt route that goes parallel to it, which is the main trade road that was 15 meters wide and 20 miles long. But it's the Camino Real, that path, the 1 meter wide path that is the hub and heart of the pilgrimage routes in Colombia. So those 1 meter paths, as you said, they might have been restricted for extremely ritual use by perhaps only a handful of people at certain times.
Yeah.
However, they're represented by the red lines in your map, all of the roads.
All of them, yeah. And most of those red lines are the big roads, because those small roads are pretty local. There's some smaller features in Chaco.
Do you have a photograph of one of the routes?
Photographic.
Something to show us what those lines represent.
I have a photograph, but I have a map that kind of shows it.
Let's see. An archaeoastronomer recently said to me that there's a curse on the whole field, and it's this: that it is horrifically difficult to take any sort of good photograph of the sun setting on an alignment, or it's very hard to visually reproduce, from the nature of looking directly into the sun. So it's very seldom you see them in the Scottish and Irish burial tombs where there's light boxes and passages that frame the sun. You can get awesome photographs of the rocks in there, but in the Chaco and open landscape, it must be pretty hard to photograph that, even from the air.
Yeah, it typically is. And this is at Pueblo Pintado, which is east of the canyon. It's one of the outliers that is a part of the Park Service Chaco Culture Historical Park system. And this, you see this light line here?
Tell me that's a road.
That's actually the road. Yeah. So you've got a vegetation change there. And this is summer solstice sunset.
Wonderful.
So you can see that road's going right to the sun on summer solstice sunset, which what adds to the interest here is, it is a Chaco outlier. It's got the road to the sunset. It's not exactly on a flat horizon, so this has been adjusted to match the visual horizon. And that's also the head of Chaco Canyon, where that sun sets. So the
What
canyon
do you mean
itself,
head?
where it starts is where that sun sets.
So,
yeah, where the canyon starts is right where that sun sets from Pueblo Pintado.
So your photographic perspective is from a, let's just say, a pilgrim or a tradesperson approaching Chaco Canyon from the east.
Yeah, or someone at that great house observing that sunset, knowing that the sun is setting figuratively in Chaco Canyon.
I'm going to have to edit out that whole bit about saying it's really difficult to take archaeoastronomy and photography, because this is just wonderful. Blew me out of the water.
Yeah. this was attempt 2. Attempt 1 was actually Rob and I were out there with his advisor when he's working on his doctorate. And we hadn't planned to go out there. It was summer solstice. We just had some time left over, and we thought, well, we can probably get to Pueblo Pintado and see if there's anything going on, because there were some things that I thought might line up with the summer solstice, some sites out there and the Great House. We got out there and they just weren't looking good at all. And we all three kind of, the light bulb went off at the same time. We looked at each other and said, the road. And we went over and had this similar experience then. And I went back the next year and got a better photo of it.
So three of you witnessed this event.
Yeah.
That's a moment. And that must be a highlight, though, because you're seeing all of your tables and charts and graphs and speculation coming into stark visual reality.
Oh yeah, and we, we looked at this road for years, and it's like it's in between the lunar major and solstice. It's alignment, and it's like it's got to be solstice. And you go, no, it's not. This doesn't fit anything. So you get more data, and you go, it's got to fit one of them. No, it still doesn't. So it's like, what does it fit? What does it fit? Then finally, we're out there at the right time. It's like, oh, okay, that's what it fits.
I'm going to ask you to show us a LiDAR image of this road, but first of all, I'd like to explore something. Give me your perspective on why there's a vegetation color change on the road.
This is because it has been excavated, so it's a swale, a lower part of the landscape, and you have a different soil, both porosity, permeability, nutrients in the road. So it has a different plant community in the road, and also different moisture content in the road. So you get these alignments, and it's not uncommon you're out there. One week you see the road, it's like, yeah, there it is. You go out the next week, it's invisible because the plants have changed and it no longer has that vegetation enhancement to show it.
I was just going to ask you, looking at this picture, it's all about the perspective when it comes to the photos and everything. So I was just wondering, well, you can't see that in a regular aerial shot of it. You can't see that, the vegetation is sort of linear in respect to the scene. But like you just said, it depends on the time of year you go. These plants can be dormant, so.
Yeah, you can see this one in an aerial photo.
Okay. Okay.
This is one of those really obvious ones, even though, for years it wasn't a road. Finally, it is a road. And I've got data. I can show you both the aerial and the LiDAR of this.
I'd love you to. I'm completely hooked by the green high vegetation of the field surrounding, but then the stark yellow brush. Mm-hmm. It's as if, as you said, there's a colony of plants that exists on less water. There's less matter for their roots to go into. So is it a cactus on the road almost?
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually happens quite a bit on the large roads, just because you've got the sediments mostly blowing in. Sometimes it's erosion that causes the difference, but usually it's the sediments blowing in. And
because of that one color change, that opens up, the researchers who only use Google Maps. You really could do a lot of damage with Google Maps, seeing those color changes and find a lot,
Oh yeah.
You don't need LiDAR specifically to notice that on, say, Google Earth, rather.
No. Yeah, and you could actually take, do classification of the whole entire scene, classify the various vegetation that you see, and, even set up some algorithms to where I only want to look for this road right here, this area, when you go do ground truthing. Mm-hmm. Set up, you only want to see 2 square meters. If it's less than 2 square meters, I'm not going to consider that a road. If it's greater than 2 square meters, well, go in and verify. So yeah, you're right. A lot of people think LiDAR is the answer to a lot of things. LiDAR is just another
tool. It's a tool that Rich has invested his last 30 years in, and we're about to be shown why.
And it's great for finding things you didn't know about. In Mesa Verde, we knew of one big road there, and with the LiDAR, they're all over there.
Have you got? Oh, there
So
you
here
go.
is,
Let's add this to the show.
So this is a photo by Matt Schultz of Pueblo Pintado. So it gives you an idea of what the Great House looks like. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this is that road.
Look at that.
So it's one that, we've known about for years, but we never could figure out what it was.
I need to know if you've ever calculated the terminus of the line and dug a hole.
Not dug a hole, no. But yeah, I know exactly. It terminates right where it enters Chaco Canyon. That's where you can't see it anymore. I think it does actually turn there because there's some road-related structures that we've seen between that location and a community known as East Community in the park that has a great house and a bunch of domestic structures. So I think it takes an angle change there, but its formalization kind of goes away, and you just get some road-related architecture and features along it that you can identify, but you can't really see a swale or anything like that.
Whereabouts is it you enter the valley? Are you saying the canyon from the top left?
That road enters the canyon right about here. It actually enters outside the park. And
in reverse, if you are standing in the northwest looking southeast towards the Great House, you're going to see the winter solstice sun rising behind the house.
Right over it.
That's spectacular because that unites the person in the house with the winter solstice rising sun.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating road. How long is that? What are we looking at lengthwise?
Oh, what is it? It's probably around 6 to 7 kilometers. It's a good sized road, actually. I thought I had the LiDAR in the presentation, but I don't. However, I could bring that up.
Would you say the majority of the great houses have roads associated with them?
Yeah, there's some that we haven't found a road, but they're pretty far and few between.
It's really interesting because the building of the road and its alignment significance must have been of equal importance to the construction of the roundhouse.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of those days that was a good day. Yeah, when we saw this, it put to rest so many questions about this road and this, this building's also aligned to the lunar minor. So you've got lunar and solar in one building, which seems to be a fairly common thing now, that the alignments to lunar and solar events are happening at the same location.
Hey, real quick, explain lunar minor to me.
Lunar minor is like it's the sun, the moon's maximum extent inside the solstice. So the moon moves back and forth outside the solstice.
Okay.
And the minor is where it's inside.
You can almost see lines of 20 in groups of 40 people and barely wearing clothing, and what they're doing is working to a sweat to clear this road. And I can't decide if they're enslaved or doing it in honor of their boss. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, the only ones who talk about this are the Navajo, and they will often refer to it as being, they'll say they were the slaves who built it. So that gives you a clue there, possibly, but it could be like anything. There's probably no real black and white answer. It's probably more of a gray answer, and
there's a serious amount of time dedicated to 280 mile of road. That's a big logistical project with labor management. Who fed the workers, clothed the workers, I mean, it's an enormous engineering task.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I finally have what I was looking for. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but it's close enough. So that's Pueblo Pintado. And if we go in here, we can see how your classic Chaco landscape works. You've got these earthworks around the building. The building kind of sits on a platform. This is the Great Kiva here, and this road enters right between the Great House and the Great Kiva. And then typically all of these low spots, there's a road coming out there as well. And there's one coming down here, one coming out here I know of. This actually looks in the LiDAR like a Great Kiva, and out there it looks like a Great Kiva. It's probably an older Great Kiva, and this is a younger form. But yeah, you can see this road quite clearly.
Yes. Is that another one parallel to it on the lower side of it?
It could be, or it could be a modern road. It's hard to say for sure. And these were the structures we were looking at. You can see there's a road coming from this one to that, pretty much that same location. And an little offshoot, this road comes to that one, and then it goes back onto this one. So that little structure is probably, there's something going on there that's important. We kind of lose it out in here, but then you pick it up right here and right here again and right here. And you can see more structures here. And then this is the mouth of the canyon right here. Yeah, that's the mouth of the canyon. Or the head of the canyon, not mouth. Yeah, so it comes in here, it enters right here. And then you're in Chaco Canyon. I think it probably takes an angle change there and goes down. And we can look at the aerial underneath that. To see what that looks like. In aerial photography, it's harder to see. Yeah, so now we can kind of see that, where Chaco Canyon is. And that's as far as that aerial goes. Shibakashi is right here, and then most of the big structures are on west of that, I mean. And then this is where the Great House is, and you can see the road quite clearly.
What kind of data are we looking at now? Is this photography?
This is NAIP, National Aerial Inventory Program Photography, U.S. Department of Ag. I think this is 1 meter data, so it's not super high resolution, but it gets the job done. And the square here is the fence, the Park Service fence around the site, because it is an outlying unit of the park, so they have a fence around the site itself to keep animals out and keep it somewhat pristine.
Real quick, how did they construct the features there, the buildings? Did they use the earth around it on the side? Did they kind of just mine what was local to that area?
More or less, yeah. There's a gravel quarry, a masonry quarry. I believe this is it right here.
So I'm fascinated to know too where the stones came from the Kivas, because did the stones for that Kiva Pintado come from maybe the actual mouth of the canyon, rocks that were in the water, that kind of thing, or is the quarry right behind it?
I think it's probably the quarry right behind it, although that's not a real big quarry. As you can see, some of the sandstone is pretty specific. You see kind of this red-brown, real tabular sandstone, which that's what they use from, 850 on up through about 1125. Around 1075-ish, they start integrating some of these bigger blocks. Which are the other sandstone there is pretty iron rich, and it's also has more silica in the cement, so it's really hard. This sandstone typically has a calcareous cement, so it's pretty soft. And most of this is typically big block. Once you get past 1120, 1100, 1130, somewhere in there, actually starts around 1050, 1025. You start seeing this show up. It's called McElmo masonry. It'll all be these big blocks. And they're shaped where this sandstone is shaped by cutting it, scribing it and breaking the face off. This is shaped more, you do that scribing, but because it doesn't break so cleanly, then there's a lot of pecking and whatnot that you can see in the surfaces that shapes it. So there will be multiple sources. Like for this wall, there would be two different sources of sandstone. One for this nice fine red-brown sandstone, and one for the more yellow, softer sandstone. And this is Peñasco Blanco in Chaco Canyon. This is in Peñasco Blanco, and you can see the core veneer masonry. You've got this nice veneer on the outside with, this is actually a nice ashlar core in it, and mud mortar. Quite often you get larger cobbles in there, larger blocks of sandstone in there. But that's a real nice one.
Walter Rich here said something last time that still keeps me awake at nights. He said perhaps not only were the stars being mapped in some of the alignments, but also too, the underworld was being mapped. Get that? As in their conception of the underworld. For example, in Egypt, when you pass and there's 13 challenges in each with its environment to conquer before you get to the god, the keeper of the threshold. So there could be elements of the underworld up here as well that completely baffle us, but made perfect sense to them. As in, they're not all to solstices or lunar maxes or minimums or T-equinoxes. They're not all. Yeah. Okay. Some of them even don't have. They stop in the middle of nowhere. Apparently, in the middle of nowhere, they'll go for several miles, 2 parallel roads. They go up faces. There's steps cut into mountainsides to adhere to straightness. And it's been considered that maybe that is the missing element, is the actual concept of straightness in a wild, chaotic landscape. If you had the power to do something straight and consistent, that's a fair demonstration of order in a chaotic world. Power.
Proven.
Power.
Right. You're displaying.
Yeah. Displaying, straightness, linearity, order. When everything else was in flux.
And so here's Pueblo Bonito.
Oh, okay. I've seen pictures of this before.
And for scale, there's a car in the parking lot right there.
Okay.
So, is there anybody? Yeah, there's somebody standing right here.
Okay, you see it right up. Yeah.
I suppose there's been several people have calculated the labor required to do something like that, right?
Yes, Steve Lexon did. And yeah, and he came up with that that 10 people could do it over the length of Bonito's existence. Of course, he didn't take into account.
What do you mean 10 people?
That these are big building. He was thinking, somebody working on it 365 days a year, 10 people could do it. But based on how, what he observed the stabilization crew out there for, I think, a couple weeks. And that's where his calculations came from. Of course, I don't think that also included the amount of work, effort to bring the masonry elements from the quarries, which are 1 to 5 miles away, and to bring the mud in by hand, to dig the mud and bring it in by hand, and also to bring the water in by hand, and that these were done in what looks like, large episodic building events. So you're building everything over the course of 10 years, not over the course of 30 years, which means you've got to, or in some cases, probably over the course of 2 years. So you've got to have a pretty good construction crew in there to do it. And that's just not Bonito. You've got Chetuquetl, which is being built at the same time, at the same scale. Pueblo del Arroyo, Pueblo del Pueblo Alto, Sincletzin. You've got Ungopave, Pueblo Pintado, Penasco Blanco, Una Vida. So you've got a lot of great houses that are all getting constructed at that same time. So it's, I think you had quite a number out there to do it.
It's always a question, was it a lot of people in little time or a little amount of people in a lot of time that did these things?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It depends. It all depends on how you look at how it was constructed. And that gives you a good view of Pueblo Bonito too.
So it was much more refined and sharper even 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Looks like commonality here is they're both up. It looks like they're all, well, the ones I've seen thus far are up against a cliff or something, a ridge.
No, they're in all sorts of different settings.
Oh, okay.
Pueblo Alto is actually on top of the mesa behind Bonito. Yeah. Actually, it's not really a mesa. It's looks like it from there, but it's a ridge, escarpment into a ridge. So that's the first construction stage. And you've got a little 6-foot tall figure. And actually the very first stage is right in here. Then these wings are added on, and this goes one room set farther than that. I just haven't added it back in yet. And this is the first Great Kiva.
Where was the scale Raptor? She said there was a person down there.
Yeah, that's a 6-foot tall figure. And here we've got kind of like the prototype of the mounds that show up out front in the final stages. And this hook in this building shows up in the final stages again. And right in here where most of the really impressive material culture is found, all the artifacts, along with this room series right in here.
Look at this now, yes.
Yeah, so this is the original wedge right in here. So that starts somewhere between 825 and 850. And then the rest of it was added on. And this is stage 2 from 835 to 1050. This is the final outline for Bonito. So you can see it grows over time.
Okay.
Mm.
And a lot of this is based on Pepper and Judd's excavation notes and work, as well as extrusion heights are based on photogrammetry and measuring physically what was out there. This model looks a lot different than other models you see because people have gone through and looked at story numbers and, calculated the extrusion based on stories, which we've got 4 stories here, 3 stories over here, but these 4 stories are 6 to 7 feet tall. These 3 stories are 11 to 12 feet tall. So a little bit different scale there. And this is where we get to where it looks like what it does now. More like it. This foundation complex that sits over there is it's foundations that were in the ground, but there were no walls on it when it was excavated, so we don't know if there were ever walls there or not. But from this corner to the west corner is the same distance as that corner to the east corner on the foundation complex.
Oh, interesting.
So it looks like there's some sort of symmetry there. So, and there's that hook I was talking about. It's back with two kivas in it. The first Great Kiva was here, second was here, third was here. It was completely deconstructed, and then the fourth was there, which if you look at the building as quadrants, then we have 4 different quadrants of the building going counterclockwise through time.
No.
Now, what that was all to set up was this, which hopefully you can see it.
Yeah.
So this is using those same construction stages in that video for this illustration. So at between 828 and 935, you've got Bonito and Chetroketel. The first alignment or building in Chetroketel happens during that time. That building is on the lunar minor alignment. So from its inception till the end, they're building out on that lunar minor alignment. And there is something at Pueblo Alto at that time. There's a structure underneath Pueblo Alto. But when it was, the test excavations were done, it was, I think, about 1/3 excavated in the 70s. They didn't, get enough of that subsurface structure or below the current great house structure to know exactly what it looked like. And we go forward in time. This is Pueblo Alto, Pueblo Bonito, and Chetroketel. Things are getting bigger, around 1050, things are starting to look pretty serious. Then from 1050 to 1170, you get a lot of construction. Still not super huge. Pueblo del Arroyo shows up at that point. But from 1070 to 1115 is when Chaco looks like it does today. So most of that construction happened in that time frame. And you can see that's a lot of construction. Then after 1015, it's mostly just fill in, adding small kivas, taking a 4-room suite and putting the kiva in there, or remodeling a large room into a kiva, sort of thing. Nothing really major. So all these circular features are kivas. In contemporary Pueblo cultures, kivas are ceremonial rooms where things are done, ritual practices take place.
That's a great graphic. I mean, I really like how you show that, because you can show activity, so then you could deduce from that things were flourishing during this time period.
Mm-hmm. That something was happening in that.
Surplus of something. Yeah, there was a surplus of something.
Do you think this shows us evidence of advancements in fortification for defensive purposes as well? Because that's a damn good fort, that top left there. I'd like to be there.
Yeah.
Most of it's high, and then you're defending one wall, one face.
Mm-hmm. As time goes on, it does look like they're getting somewhat more defensive in nature.
I suppose with excess resources, you can have excess raiding.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people, it could be interpreted as defensive in nature or as exclusionary. So, the average person cannot go into this space.
Sure.
Or if they do, they have to have a good reason to be allowed to go in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this helps. This shows the buildings. So all the major buildings in that downtown Chaco area, along with the roads. So you get an idea of what that looks like.
I love how you're so familiar with the site that you called it the Chaco downtown area.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's either the Chaco downtown Chaco or Chaco core is how we refer to it, because that's where you've got this concentration of great
And look
houses.
at these roads. I mean, it's spellbinding.
And this is Casa Rinconada, Pueblo Bonito, Pueblo del Arroyo, Chetroketel. These are the small domestic sites. And you can see, road coming from Bonito to Casa Rinconada. A lot of roads coming from up at Pueblo Alto, which is right here, to Chetroketel. Pueblo Alto, you see all these roads. That's kind of like the road fan. That's what's known as the road fan, coming into Alto, into primarily gates in this wall that goes across the back of it.
I just want you to go back a little. Yeah, see those two roads coming in from the top and terminating. That does suggest that they were rope pulleying lots of goods up and down, perhaps even people in wooden baskets. Why would a road begin or end at the top of a cliff?
Yeah. Yeah, this one, there's toe holds that take you up. So the hand and toe holds going up the cliff. To get to the first part, you could have a ladder, then hand and toe holds. This one, there's not much, but there is this building at the bottom, which went up quite a ways. So you could have a ladder or some sort of scaffolding there and a ladder to get the rest of the way up.
What's that height? Well, how tall is that?
It's about, probably 60 feet.
Okay. All right.
So it's a ways. I mean, it's not insurmountable, but you wouldn't want to drop off it.
No.
And right here, this is kind of an interesting, do I show it? You can kind of see it right here. There's some rooms kind of missing at this corner of Chetro-Kettle. And I think that's where that road enters. They're addressing that road coming down. There's actually a ramp built up here, so you could have a very short ladder, or just the ramp itself could actually get up on top there.
A shorter fall.
Yeah, shorter fall. And then these roads, actually, you can climb up the cliff. There's ways up, but this road predates that road, and it was closed off. There's a rock alignment going across it. So the first road matched the alignment of this wall. Once that wall was enclosed with this wall, this east-west wall was enclosed with this front wall, a new entrance was created, and that road addresses that new entrance, which is kind of interesting.
It is.
Over here. And there's the parking lot with cars in it for scale. So you get a scale of what this is all built at. And you can see this wall aligns with this road that goes to a structure on the other side of the canyon. That wall aligns with that road that goes to a structure on the other side.
Interesting.
And then this road goes to this notch in King Quetzal. You got this, everything's getting locked in together with the roads, as well as roads going to alcoves or little cavettes in the cliffs or springs. And so there's several different types of things or behaviors.
How would you answer this? Which came first, the kivas and the buildings, or the roads?
That's the classic chicken or egg question, and there is no good answer. I think sometimes the roads are coming after construction, but I think in most instances those alignments are there prior to construction, and they're known alignments that for whatever reason are there prior to construction. And then the construction of the buildings is to emphasize this important location that was already important throughout time. Underneath Bonito, there is several Basket Maker 3 structures. So, it starts in Basket Maker 3, and there may be earlier stuff under that as well.
What's the time period for Basket Maker 3 for the audience?
Basket Maker 3 is around 450, 500-ish to 700, 750, depending on who you talk to. It changes, but, who's somewhere in that time range. And then Basket Maker 2 is before that. But, yeah, there's archaic sites in Chaco as well. And some of those archaic sites, some features with those line up with features that show up as being, or alignments that are important during, Chaco's fluorescence. So I think this is stuff that some of it starting way early. The South Road, Rob, when in his master's thesis, and not master's, doctorate, he demonstrated pretty well that is an alignment that starts early, probably in Basket Maker 3. So, yeah, and my guess is it's going on before that, and you're just getting formalization of whatever that alignment is through time, to make it, more important or to address its importance.
You're saying the buildings monumentalized the lines in a great sense.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening.
So there was an awareness of angle and astronomy and significance and angular awareness of one's environment, and eventually that was ritualized, and the key, let's call them nodes, key points in the landscape, perhaps deemed sacred, were built upon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think probably Lowry Ruin or Lowry Pueblo demonstrates that pretty well. This, because it's smaller. Chaco is so big, you get lost in everything that's there. The outliers are a little bit smaller and easier to deal with. And let's see here.
Are we looking at all your own drone mapping, Rich?
Yeah. This is all drone, and it's some of it's LiDAR that Anasazi and Solstice Project had done. Some of it's the USGS LiDAR, MBOM LiDAR. This is okay. Where are you?
Now, if we can just establish the LiDAR project for Colombia, where we are. Actually,
Oh yeah,
that's the big kicker.
that would be huge.
Hey, we're privately funded. Everything we do is out of our own hips. So never mind to get the drone and the LiDAR unit, but then probably the same again for the software to interpret it. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
I've got the software, Ash. Don't worry about the software. I've got the software.
Yeah, we've got a LiDAR drone at San Juan College. We're working to get everything figured out so we know how to use it.
I love the idea of having your own system. You built this drone. You have the LiDAR sensor. You have the SDK. You know how all the data is moved. You know that. But that requires so much knowledge. That requires a smaller pocketbook than a turnkey system. However, if you have these places like Ashley and I have that we just want the freaking data. I just want the LiDAR data.
Just get somebody down here to do the data.
Yeah, I can process it myself. I just need the equipment. That's where the money comes into play. Unless you do your own system, which I can't do that myself. I'd have to quit my job and just immerse myself into that for 6 months, in order to have anything.
I'd love that.
Work.
Get you down here for 6 months with your drone. Yeah, you're right, though, Walter. And also, something that terrifies me too is this. Walter's the eyes in the sky for everything we do here. And I know this. The minute that you go and spend, say, 20, 40, 60, God knows what it would be for a big drone that's going to give you the flight time, within months of you buying that, it's going to be debased, devalued by the next generation, and you're going to be sitting with something 60K in the cupboard in 2 years going, well, it can't do this or that or this.
Yeah, it's not worth what you paid for it.
Yeah. But just remember this, Ashley, the drone that I've been taking out there for the last, how many years have I been coming out there to see it?
7 years, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah. I have used the same drone the whole time, and you get great stuff when we have the settings right. I don't want to.
I've seen people here with 5 and 10K drones, and Walter puts his thing up, and it looks more like a helicopter than a drone. It's huge. But it's so stable and heavy in the air, and this is what people overlook. That thing has a lesser gimbal than a modern drone, but my goodness, it's so pleasurable to edit. It is pristine.
Mm-hmm. It's just that Phantom 4 Pro, and that thing is 10 years old, and it's a workhorse.
Still good.
Ashley and I were doing something, and it hit a tree. It fell down. I'm like, oh crap! All we did was just set it aside, charge at the battery. Well, let's see what happens. Works like a champ.
Yeah.
Wow. That would not happen with a Mavic.
No. Oh, no, I did that with I did that with my Mavic. I thought I'd get a little cocky, and I figured, well, let's just go faster. It was wintertime. Leaves were not on the tree. I did not see the branch. Because the last thing I want to do is take my drone up and fly something. Because after, I'll tell you this, every time you tell me to get a shot of this, get a map of this, I'm like, I'm going to screw this up. I'm going to screw this up. I'm going to give him something that's crap he's not going to be able to use. I'm going to feel like garbage. I don't want to do this. but that does not stop him from asking me. It's always, what about this? What about this? And I'm sitting there, oh God, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too stressful.
In February last year, Walter was tasked with flying his drone down a 400-meter river gully and then to fly up the face of the highest waterfall in Colombia as close as he could get. And the whole way, I'm going to lose the drone. I'm going to let you down. The film's going to be useless. Every time, he's like a parrot. And what happens? I get the most unbelievable, not just the waterfall footage, but he mapped the whole thing. He made a point cloud above it, and I've got all of this stuff in this. And the waterfall is a central part in the creation mythology of the Muisca culture. So we thought, let's map the 0 point, ground zero for the creation myth of the Muisca culture, and we did. But I wouldn't have seen you putting in a brand new 10 grand Mavic into that situation, Walter. You're happy to throw the old workhorse in.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that, but just leave me alone while I'm flying it. Let me sit there and stew on my own. I don't want anybody talking to me. Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. No.
But I'm always filming Walter using the drone, so I am there over your shoulder, shoving it in your face. We're on an hour and a half. Do you want to continue with the talk? Is there some more you'd like to share? Because, of course, it's not the last time you'll be on, Rich. We were only scratching the surface here, but what are we looking at there?
So that's the site, the Great House. It's a great house and a great kiva, and then it's got just a bunch of other, actually rather large sites in the area as well. And that's a map of it. The Great Kiva over here, Great House over here, and this is not only, it shows multiple alignments and how they are addressed in the structure and outside the structure, but also an interpretation on the features in the kiva that add into this whole narrative. So there's the Great Kiva, the map. You can see now Great House. It's got a roof over that part of it to protect it. And there's the Great Kiva. And the first time I went there, I looked at it and I go, those look like effigies. And you can see they kind of do. This is a photogrammetric model.
Oh, these are two people sitting down holding something.
Yeah.
Like bags.
Yeah. So, and then years later, I went out with John Stein and Taft Blackhorse, and Taft looks at it and goes, those are effigies. And he's Navajo. And then a few years later, I went out and this sign was up, which a Santa Clara Pueblo person interpreted as being effigies of the summer and winter people. Wow. So, after you hear that, you go, but you think, maybe solstice or equinox alignment here. And so I was all excited and I played with it. I never could get anything that I felt was definitive. And then I got LiDAR data of it. So there's the aerial photo, the map, the LiDAR data. So now you can see that's the Great Kiva. That's where the Great House is. We zoom out and you can see this Chaco road goes, you can see it going across these cultivated fields. So it hasn't been completely plowed out. That's actually the lunar minor alignment.
Lunar minor.
Yeah. And then if we change the sun angle, which is nice about LiDAR, you can do that. Now you can see there's a road right here. There's this road. This road, looking at it, you go, that looks kind of like solstice. So I measured it and it's within 0.3 of a degree of summer solstice sunset or winter solstice sunrise. And then looking at that, I'm going, that I think that's pointing right at the Abajos.
Oh, yeah.
So you get Google Earth. So I made the 3D models of the building and the kiva. And I extended that. If you extend that line across the Great House, it goes right across the center of the Great Kiva. And there's summer solstice sunset, according to Google.
Yep.
So I went out there and see if that works. And this is a video of that summer solstice sunset across the building.
Oh, well done.
And you can see there's a little peak right there.
Right.
That actually sits right in the center of the sun at sunset.
What's at the top of that peak?
Probably something. There is that summer solstice alignment going right across the edge of the highest portion of the building. However, this is the earliest construction. So that point is actually really close to the corner of that back room. Or if you offset it a little, it's on an alignment that this door opening would cast sun and shadow right in the corner on winter solstice sunrise.
Interesting.
And the lunar major moonset happens right at the corner of that building, between the corner of that building and the corner of this little structure. And if we look at it, this is done by David Valentine. The moon comes down and it sets right in a notch over here, right on that alignment. So what happens is, because the sun sets right in between the lunar major and lunar minor, the lunar major and minor bracket the Abajos with the sunset in the middle.
So they chose the location to build there because of that hierophany, that solar and lunar effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, can you see, these are some of the building structures out there. There's one right here as well. This is the Bluestone site. This road comes in and it's actually intruded on by the Bluestone site, which is pretty normal. This is a P3, so the latest great house out there is intruding onto this alignment. And that alignment happens to be on the lunar minor moonset. So using Google Earth again, we can simulate lunar minor moonset. No, moonrise, not moonset. And there it is. If we go over to where it's at, it's actually setting on a small peak over in the La Platas. Not a small peak, a large peak. So it's rising right as it would get up, it would sit right on top of that peak. So
let's skip back 5 minutes in the sense that I asked you which came first, the lines or the buildings. Well, you've just demonstrated it was the visual alignment they saw and determined where to build. The lines came first.
Yeah, they're putting the buildings where they can actually integrate all these alignments into one. I forgot. That doorway that the solstice sunrise, winter solstice sunrise would be at the corner of that room. That doorway on equinox is offset to the doorway behind it, to where equinox sunrise creates a shaft of light going into the back room.
It's a true lunisolar temple.
This is that original room block. That door is offset to that door. This is east-west, so you'd create a shaft of light on that back window. And what's really interesting, which makes me believe, this is all intentional, is when they added on these two rooms later, they kept that alleyway open.
Yeah.
There was no
purposely
blockage there, purposely. Yeah. So if we go down to look at photo, so there we can see that equinox sunrise comes right through that opening to create that shaft on the back wall still. So this site, I mean, it's small, so it's easily interpreted. It's capturing the sun, the moon, and the winter and summer solstice and equinox sunrise. So, I mean, it's pretty incredible. As well as it's doing some things, this road that comes down here, that projects out to a saddle on Sleeping Ute Mountain where there's a spring. So they're tying all this together into this one building on this land, or this one complex, because that's actually articulating more with the Great Kilo than the Great House, but it's all coming together in this one spot.
Look at the road they've built to unite a spring.
Yeah.
Showing a huge ritualization of water itself.
Yeah, sure.
Or just a nice, simple, straight road for people to go and collect water, I suppose. Both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. That's what's been nice about being able to work both in Chaco Canyon itself and outside of Chaco Canyon at these outliers. Is the outliers are complex but simpler, where in Chaco things are just so overbuilt and it's hard to figure out exactly what's going on sometimes.
Rich, we've hit an hour and a half, and I'd like to ask you something to wrap this up, and it's only come into my head this afternoon, and it's this. Off topic.
Okay.
6 weeks ago, when the American media was abuzz with UFOs and advanced Russian drones over New Jersey, what went through your head? Because you're a drone guy, and what Walter thought, what was in your mind?
Department of Defense again. Yeah, that same thing happened a few years ago in Colorado. There are all these drones. Nobody claimed responsibility, but they were all flying near where military installations were. So I think it's all probably some sort of test to see how this works, to identify the drones, and also can we thwart what they're doing, type thing. And nobody's going to talk about it because it's top secret stuff. So that's exactly what I thought at the time is, this is Department of Defense doing testing. They aren't going to tell anybody. Nobody's going to know what. Everybody's going to freak out because, and what's in that area? There's a lot of military installations in the area that they were showing up.
Okay. Great, Rich. Listen, I should thank you very much for your time. You give us an hour and a half to go through your work in Chaco.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's going to be great. It's going to represent the first of these new visual episodes where people like yourself come on and actually share their work. I love that flow we hit tonight where you were just falling into it one piece after a time. I was not expecting you to show us the video with the maps at the end. That's what got it for me, brought it into a real sort of different light for me.
Great.
Walter, how did you take it?
Oh, it was wonderful. Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for the invite, Ash. Great talking to you too, Rich.
It was good to meet you.
This is my passion. When it's not Ashley stressing me out to go take video of whatever, and I just want to do him right. That's all that matters to me. And I love GIS. I saw you were using a global mapper. I shouldn't have said that because now Ashley's going to expect far more from me. So I've just done it to myself.
Do you use global mapper too?
Yeah.
It's my Swiss Army knife. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was great to see this because, like I say, this is my passion. I do it for various reasons. Ashley looks at it for alignments. I look at it for other things. Ashley knows what those things are. You do it for alignments as well, Rich. And it's a good perspective. It's a good different context for me. And if anything, you've helped me understand where Ashley is coming from whenever he starts spouting out all this. This is a line, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I really don't care. I just want to know where it goes to and what's at the end of it. That's all I care about.
I didn't even say it to you, but when those maps come up and it was showing you, when you asked what's the lunar maximum and minimum, because I'll maybe say to Walter, look, I know that this structure here, this Andean Hill Temple points to that mountain because it's on the lunar max. And Walter will say, tell me where to fly the drone and I will fly it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just do that. But then what your maps did, dude, kudos to your maps. They are wonderful because that draws me out. That gives me the bigger picture. Ashley is so intimate with this. He is so, he knows all the nitnoid things. And I don't have those nitnoid things to put all the pieces together. But, over time, I'm doing all this stuff with him and I'm mapping out where we're going and where things are all pointing. It's coming together. but your map was just wonderful and how you had all that stuff
Oh,
just
thanks.
overview. It was great. It was wonderful. I might be contacting you for some pointers whenever I do maps for Ashley.
Okay.
And that was the other thing. I started remote sensing doing spectral analysis, things like that. And then I got the Air Force contacted me up because I do have experience with that. And, the simple path, the different vegetation, that is just a wonderful example of, automate all this stuff. I don't believe in automating everything because I like to go places. I like to get dirty. I like to get in the field, but there's so many automation processes these days that you can find out so much. I'm not saying so much more. I think you can find out things quicker than if you were on the ground. But I'll still be the first to volunteer to go on the ground. So
yeah, being on the ground is fun. That's where it's
absolutely.
really at.
Yeah,
There you experience it.
absolutely.
It's a fallacy to think that everything exists on a screen. It's a very abstract thing to have a hill or a building on a screen in front of us.
Oh, yeah.
We've come for a long, long time where the field is real. Mm-hmm. I got more almost from 5 minutes on your photograph of the sun setting behind that mountain and seeing the vegetative change than I did, or equally as much as I did from the fly rounds of Kivas. It's a fascinating visual to see the alignment in a photograph.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it immensely. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I did too. It was fun.
Great. Rich, thank you very much indeed.